Hi all, Pastor Hannah here for Butler First United Methodist Church with this week's Taking It Home devotional. I bet that you have either said the phrase or have heard somebody else say the phrase, all or nothing. I want it all or I don't want anything. I'm sure you are definitely familiar with this mentality. The mentality that says it either has to be perfect, I want the house to look exactly like I have it imagined in my head, every fine detail in place, or it's not worth building. Or I have to get first place, or you have to get first place, or there's no point in even trying. Like, we're not gonna go for second place here. Or maybe when it comes to talking to people and about something that you have placed on your heart that you want others to catch on fire for as well, you think, you know what, if I can't get everybody, if I can't convince every single person in that room, then what's the point in even trying? We just have this all or nothing mentality sometimes, this really grand idea that it has to be everything or nothing. Well, I want to help us today to understand that we don't need to have a grand idea in order for the Holy Spirit to take our efforts and multiply them and make them grand. But just starting small is what's important. Last week in Pastor David's message, he talked about changing the world and how changing the world starts with one. If you didn't see that message, I would encourage you to do so on our ButlerFumc.com website. You can check it out there. We are celebrating the birth of the church, and that's what the church was to do, is to change the world, and that all started because of one man. Well, you have the opportunity to change the world also, right? It can start with you, and it doesn't have to start big or grand. Let's learn from Paul and Silas as they help us to understand that they didn't have an all or nothing mentality, but they definitely had an impact on the world. We're going to read today from Acts chapter 17, verses 1 through 9. After Paul and Silas had passed through Amphipolis and Apollonia, they came to Thessalonica, where there was a synagogue of the Jews. And Paul went in, as was his custom, and on 3 Sabbath days argued with them over the Scriptures, explaining and proving that it was necessary for the Messiah to suffer and to rise from the dead, and saying, "This is the Messiah, Jesus, whom I am proclaiming to you." Some of them were persuaded and joined Paul and Silas, as did a great many of the devout Greeks, and not a few of the leading women. But the Jews became jealous, and with the help of some ruffians in the marketplaces, they formed a mob and set the city in an uproar. While they were searching for Paul and Silas to bring them out to the assembly, they attacked Jason's house. When they could not find them, they dragged Jason and some believers before the city authorities, shouting, "These people who have been turning the world upside down have come here also, and Jason has entertained them as guests." They were all acting contrary to the decrees of the emperor, saying that there is another king named Jesus. The people and the city officials were disturbed when they heard this. And after they had taken bail from Jason and the others, they let them go. What would it be like if Paul and Silas decided, you know what, we're not getting everybody here, so what's the point in trying? Let's just let the ones we get go ahead and do their thing, and we're going to stop. What would have happened if they would have been discouraged and decided, well, if we can't convince everybody, then why are we going to convince anybody? They didn't set out to worry about how many they're going to convince. Are they going to convince a lot of people? Are they going to persuade all of the assembly? Are they going to persuade just a few? That number wasn't even in their head. What they knew was that they had a responsibility to share the message of Jesus Christ. That was what they were concerned about. Getting out there and doing and saying the message that the Holy Spirit gave them to say. And you know what happens when we do that? When we are faithful, God takes that faithfulness and he takes that message that we have and he multiplies it in the heart of believers. The Holy Spirit multiplies it in the heart of non-believers and makes them believers, right? When we speak it, what if we just convince 1 out of 10 people? And then what if that one person turns around and convinces 5 out of 10 people? And then those 5 people turn around and convince 25 out of 50 people. We don't know the way that effort that we take will multiply right? And then when the Holy Spirit does something with just a little bit of our results, the Holy Spirit will make it grand, because that's what God does. God does grand things and works in grand ways. So I want to encourage you, maybe you want to convince everybody, and that's okay. But it's also okay to just start with one. Just be obedient to the message God has placed in your heart. And don't be afraid to say it, because you're afraid of who might be listening or who won't agree. Right? You have a message. You are the church. So go ahead, change the world, just starting with one. I'm so glad that you joined us this week for our Taking It Home devotional. Join us on Sunday at 9:45 online on YouTube, Crossfire Butler, or on our Crossfire Butler Facebook page as well. We hope that we see you there.